This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.
And welcome back, everybody. Always love when we get together here because you meet so many different people that do things that are so interesting, might not have realized it before. Like our next guest, she's a professional storyteller and author. She tells stories and very well. And she's got a passion for details and history. And we're going to dig into another one of her books today with Carolyn Marshall Stearns, our professional of the year, back on the program. How are you today?
I'm very good. Thank you.
I got to imagine this time of year where we're heading into the holidays and there's a bunch of interesting holidays this time of year, like Halloween, that you're busier than usual. Would you say?
This is my busy season from now to the third week of December.
Wow. Wow. So tell me, before we get into another one of your books, tell us what kind of stuff you're doing. You know, I think you were at a senior center last week, storytelling. Some examples of stuff you do.
Yeah, I was in a memory care unit at a nursing home last week. I was also in a 1700s broadside church with no power, although they brought in some battery lighting. So it had this wonderful candlelit ambiance, and I was telling spooky stories. That was in Preston, Connecticut, which is also a town where I have ancestral roots 10 generations ago. And it's my third visit to that terrific colonial building that's preserved there. And I've booked some schools, and we'll be doing literacy building and listening skills with kids, and playing a day with kids at another school system. So lots of stuff going on, and just like every other day, there's something to do.
So where I am, and just coincidentally, not far from you, you're in another state, but I'm on Long Island, and I grew up in the Port Jefferson area. You're in Connecticut, right across the Sound. And every year around the holidays, they do a Dickens festival, Charles Dickens. And people walk around the town dressed in that period clothing. There's storytelling. I want to get you on the ferry and bring you over here because
I'm ready.
You would be more than perfect for that. I just visualize you wearing that period of clothing and just down a street corner reading. And it's just a wonderful thing. There's horse-drawn carriages, hot chocolate, and all of that. I'm sure they got that stuff going on in Connecticut and around the country too.
There's a lot of special events. I've been to Old Bethpage Village as
Restoration
an announcer.
Village. Oh, wow. Wow, look at that. Yeah, perfect fit for that too. With some of the history, and it's essentially, for anybody that's not going to know, you're out of state. It's a large recreated village with some authentic, true buildings from, I'm not sure if it's the 1800s, the 1700s, but then there's people in the buildings dressed in that time of that clothing. And, you could have a blacksmith, and you walk in there and you ask him questions about what he does, shoeing horses and what's that like? And he answers as if it's back then at that time. I got to imagine, Carolyn, never gets boring for you.
No. And every time I turn around, there's some little nibble of history that I'm like, oh, I got to go dig into that. I got to learn more. And, that's a rabbit hole that you don't know what you'll find when you get down the burrow.
Have you, one of the top 3 fears in life for all of us is public speaking. Do you ever get nervous? Did you in the beginning?
No, never been really nervous. A little anticipation, excitement that could be equated a little bit to nerves, but no, I've always been able to speak in front of people. And I think we mentioned in our first interview that I started at 14 as a museum docent. I'm just not afraid to talk to a busload of people. And so it's a fortunate thing that I was born with that gift, and that it's taking care of me.
I have to imagine too, when you're going to go before a group, large, doesn't matter, that you're going to tell a story. You know the pieces of the story, but I'm thinking part of the fun and part of the release of worrying how it's going to come out is you can change the story a little bit. The facts need to remain the same. Like, for example, we're talking about a farmhouse from 1765, and you're talking about something that took place there. Well, when Farmer Joe walked from here to there and did this, you can change his path. Nobody's going to, Carolyn, wait a minute. I know for a fact that he did not do that. You can change that, but the facts remain the same. Do you feel that that gives you a little bit of latitude, makes it more fun, and then it kind of eases you up a little bit?
It does. And nobody knows exactly how I'm going to tell it.
Right.
So if I leave something out by accident, I can go back and say, oh, but I didn't tell you,
Yeah.
and fix that item. And so
Mm.
it all ties back together in the story. And that's something you can't do in print if you leave out something, and then once you put your work in print, then people have an expectation of it to come off again the same way.
Yes. Now, Carolyn, I saw you last year. You told that story and it was different. I didn't like the way you told it this time. You know what I mean? People get like that. That just seems like such a fun craft profession. Um, and it's the way it was back in 1765. They were doing the same thing. That's where I'm blown away. Nothing has changed. You're doing the same thing.
That's
No,
right.
right?
For centuries, millennia. I mean, since people could talk. And
Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't get old. And yeah, here we are with artificial intelligence. You can plug that into AI, it can spit back a story. Kind of the same thing, but just doesn't have that human connection. And what do you got to do to craft that story from AI? You got to tell it what to do. You got to prompt it.
and it doesn't have a clear grasp of things like agriculture. I run into it all the time when I see it in things, and it just doesn't understand the meanings of some of those agricultural terms
Oh wow. Okay.
because all that information has to be fed to it, and it hasn't gotten there yet.
Hasn't
So,
gotten there yet. I have a friend of mine was playing with it last week, and he asked, "What is the dominant political party in the United States?" It got it wrong. He could have asked it anything. And then he said, "Who is the president of the United States?" Not talking politics here, it's just a fact. And it got it wrong. And then he started pushing it a little bit more, telling it that it was wrong. I think it was Chat GPT 5, which is the latest one. And after a little bit of prodding, it actually admitted it made a mistake and its sources were incorrect. So it's not perfect by any stretch. So tell us about this book that we're going to dig into today.
so this is just a short story in thin paperback, not a lot of pages. It is illustrated by a local artist. It's Christmas Spirits, and the spirits is in the somewhat ghostly form. And it's about Clement Clark Moore, who wrote "'Twas the Night Before Christmas."
I knew I knew that name from somewhere, but I would never be able to tell you.
And he was from New York.
Oh, I didn't know.
I'm sure you've been to Chelsea.
Sure.
Well, that was his estate. All of Chelsea was the
Wow.
Moore estate.
Never knew.
And there is so much incredible history that I researched on him. And the seed of inspiration was my mom. We were talking about the Christmas season coming, and I needed some new material, something different to share. And she said, well, I don't know hardly a thing about him, and he's such an icon of Christmas and his story. I mean, what family hasn't read that on Christmas Eve to children? But who was he? Well, it's been forgotten. And his wish was not to be known as the author of a children's poem. That was for his children. And it was to be known for his immense intelligence. He spoke 6 languages and he wrote the Hebrew lexicon.
Never ever even knew that. And how does he tie into your book?
So the young character, this is also historical fiction. I like to take current day people back into history. I find it's a great vehicle to introduce people who may not be history lovers to historical story. So all the facts of old New York are correct. And old Newport, Rhode Island, as Clement Clark Moore had a cottage there. It's a big wooden Victorian, not one of the stone mansions of the Rockefeller level rich. But nonetheless, in the social scene of Newport in the summer. And that cottage is called Cedars. It's not what we think of as a cottage. It's a very large house. And it does have a wooden plaque of Santa Claus out on the front porch, which is a lovely reminder of its roots.
Wow.
So as I researched, I decided to go the historical fiction route, which I adore, and took a modern day young people from Newport and all the history that's in that city. And they go on a bus trip to do the Christmas thing in New York City. And the young woman is lost in a snowstorm, a blizzard in New York City, and she meets all these interesting characters from history. So there's an incredible timeline, all of true history. They all fall into place and all in a succession of eras from presidents and baseball players. There's something for everybody because it's New York. It has it all.
So the blizzard, you made that up, but what a great thought, going through, blizzard, which can be a little trying and maybe stressful. During the blizzard, that's where the magic happened.
That's right. And it's easy to get lost in a blizzard because so much of your scenery is obliterated and it's hard to tell what time you're in.
Interesting. I wanted, before we dig into the book more, well, how funny, I didn't mean to say the word more, but we are talking about more with an E and two O's. The illustrations are amazing. And I love them because they look like they were drawn.
They are by Patricia Nagley, and she's a local artist I've known for years. This is the Newport Cottage window looking out over the garden.
Wow.
And the Trinity Church there in Newport, which is another historical, fabulous place. Go sit in the pew George Washington and Desmond Tutu sat in.
The reason I bring up the illustrations is most books that come out now that have illustration, it's all computer generated. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But after a while, it kind of all looks the same. Where this is got that kind of raw, but it's got punch. It's very well done. Very well. By the way, I don't know if I shared with you.
And his headstone in Riverside Cemetery.
If I wasn't doing what I'm doing now, I would have been a syndicated cartoonist.
Right.
So that's why I look at that. I was like, yeah, that's good stuff. That's, it's very, very real. I picture her drawing it. So what should we do? Can we listen to a passage from the book?
Sure. This is my favorite image.
It's Santa's boots walking in the snow. That is like from the angle low from the snow.
And it doesn't give any of the story away, but it makes you want more.
But it makes a connection with your heart. That was a really weird illustration, how that worked. Like, I feel like like whenever you see a picture of Santa and whether you realize it or not, it's taking you back to your childhood. Your subconscious is seeing it. Your subconscious as a kid saw pictures or Santa so many times. That angle so low, you get it. Like he's walking through the snow. You just see, for anybody that can't see this, if you're listening, it's his boots with the white fur trim around it. And it stops at about his calf, if that. And you're looking at it from behind as he's walking forward. Really cool. Did you tell her you wanted that like that? Or she
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
All of the images were very much by inspiration of things I'd read and seen in my research and where I wanted people to focus and how I want them to be sucked into the story.
That's a really pinnacle point because as a storyteller, you're leading us. I never thought of it that way. You can, it's almost like we're dogs and you're holding the leash and you can, walk us in the direction and we're just going to follow. We're listeners, we're just listening, but you can take us on any direction you want. It's kind of a cool power.
It is. And you can put pressure on and or take it away.
Yeah.
And, and if I see people's strong reaction, I can back the story off and soften it. And so, yeah, it does have an immense power. And it's why advertising uses all storytelling. They use that, our need for story, our need to understand through story. It uses those things to empower their product. And so, yeah, if there's a product or a commercial that gets to you, it's because the storytelling is superb.
I 100,000% agree. And there's a story in everything. Everything, every moment of your life. There's a story in this marker I'm holding in my hand. What's the story with this marker? I mean, it's my story, but there's a story. When I use this marker, it reminds me of being a kid. I love Flair pens, but it's got to be the one that doesn't have the white cap at the bottom because it doesn't write the same way. And I actually seek these out at Staples and buy them, in lots of like 10 or whatever, because I just love the way it flows. And I can't use any other pen. That's my story.
I know some other people who are pen specific.
But I'll bet you there's a story there. There's a story in this microphone. There's a story in this T-shirt. I'm being serious. I'm not, there is. When you really look a little bit deeper, there's a story in everything. Tell us a story.
So I'm going to drop you into the middle of this story and you'll have to read it or see me in performance telling it at the holiday time to catch the rest of it. Mm. But our young character is lost in that blizzard in New York. It took a few seconds for her eyes to adjust to the dark sanctuary of the church. She thought how appropriate the word sanctuary was as her face began to feel the effects of the heating system. Two gentlemen stood before her, dressed in good suits and smiling. One handed her a program and held his arm out to signal entrance into the pews. Rich, orchestrated organ music was playing in the church. Hoping it was her friend Chris and needing to warm her feet, she went inside and sat. She slowly unbuttoned her coat as her eyes wandered the church. Her eyes took in the great vaulted ceiling, the banners row upon row, the stained glass windows, each with a story to tell. Many people filled the seats, shedding layers of protection from the storm, and she continued to do the same. In the front to the left, she saw the great organ towering over the organist, who was not Chris. A little disappointed, she let the feeling pass as the music soared. The pipes reverberated with an immense trumpeting like she'd never heard before. The organ was huge and had so many more pipes than the one at Trinity. What an incredible instrument, she thought. One of the ushers carried a single chair to the front and center of the church and placed it carefully. So in this church is the Church of the Intercession in New York City, and they do a reading of Clement Clarke Moore's "'Twas the Night Before Christmas" every year as a event that is very well visited. And then they proceed from there by candlelight down to the cemetery to give him their thoughts and share that moment of Christmas magic.
Wow. There's magic in just what you read. Like it takes you back to even being a kid.
So I went to New York with a friend of mine, and she asked if I'd gotten in touch with the places I wanted to see in the story. She was taking me around to help me find all the places in my story that I'd only found through Google Street View. And she was surprised I knew where to get in and out of the subway. And I said, Google Street View, I know which way to go from here.
Wow.
I'd done it all, so I wouldn't be lost in New York City. My character didn't have the benefit of that. But I said, no, I didn't think about it. And she goes, well, people don't unlock things for people in New York. But I knocked at the office of the church, and told them who I was and that I'd written a book and it was included in it, and Clement Clark Moore. And could I just have a peek inside? I'd seen photographs online. She took me in and gave my friend and I a wonderful tour of the sanctuary.
Wow. Wow. When you're writing, is there always some type of true historical connection?
Not always. Um, I can totally make things up, but I love the history. So
Wait, where's the passion there? Why? What do you think?
grew up embedded in history in a 1751 colonial. And that's how I knew what to do in the museum. Was a colonial home museum of Patriot Nathan Hale that I worked in as a teenager, because I already had all that knowledge and the comfort with 18th century life. And so it was natural for me to step into that role, not something I had to work at.
It's almost as if you're baking something or you're preparing a dish in the kitchen, and there's certain ingredients. Going to add tomatoes, going to add some spice, going to add some, meat, whatever it might be. Those are the given, and then you make something out of it. A tomato's a tomato. Yes, there's going to be a little variation there, but the tomato's a tomato. That seems like that's part of the history in the story. That's the given. And then maybe another ingredient, and then you make magic out of it. Now, I was just thinking too, like you talk about, that where you grew up, even walking through a cemetery, I don't view it necessarily sad. I view it as a celebration of life. There's a story to they lived lives. And when you look at the headstones, a lot of times you see a bit of their story. I find it fascinating.
In the 19th century, people did Sunday picnics in cemeteries, family picnics at the headstones, the graves of their ancestors, to share that day with them. And a couple of reasons: it was safe and it was clean. And a lot of cities were messy in the old days. They didn't have the public works that we have. The streets were muddy mires and filth. Cemeteries were a clean and safe place, and children could play, and people would bring their picnic and spend time with the ancestors.
How interesting. You go from that, and then, many years later, it's sometimes viewed negative. I do marketing, and I all different categories, but funeral homes as well. And one campaign I started recently, and it's called Celebrate the Memories. There's memories there. It's sad when somebody passes, but there's a memory and a life that's lived. And I believe that goes with all types of history. There's people were living their lives, in Mr. Moore in New York City. Interesting life he lived.
Yep, they're not a set of dates in stone. Right. There was all the drama and anxiety and worry and career hustle and patriotism and negativity, all of it. And it's when you get digging into those stories that you find that. And I do a workshop for people on digging up those real stories of their ancestors.
That sounds like so much fun. It really does, for you and us.
Yeah.
Carolyn, what's your website so we can see more of your books and more of what you do?
Carolyn Stearns, Storyteller.com.
And Stearns is spelled Stearns, correct?
Correct.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing today. And I want to throw out here too, if anybody's got a question, instant feedback, steve@gmail.com. No matter what it is, we'd love to read it next time we get together. And I appreciate it.
That sounds great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back.
This is the Global Podcast Network, where executives and professionals connect, share, and inspire. Stay tuned for the conversations that drive success.